when you speak mainstream media, to me, it's that no one else counts except the Democrats and Republicans, because that's all the mainstream media will ever give credit to. And when things are done that are so atrocious, to include a third candidate, the mainstream media sits by and lets it happen. I mean, the biggest case in point was 1992 when Ross Perot got 19.7% of the vote, 1 out of 5, roughly 20%. My old physics teacher would tell me to round up, as you always do in physics, so he got 20%. Well, what happened then, and the mainstream media never even covered it. They didn't even expose what went on in our country. Perot scared the status quo so badly in that election that all the way up until that point, all the debates, presidential debates, had fallen under the National League of Women Voters, which you can argue is essentially a fairly neutral group. They have conservative women, liberal women, independent women, whatever it might be. They were in charge. Yeah. Well, what happened then, because Perot scared them so bad in 92, our illustrious Congress, who I might add is made up of pretty well all Democrats and Republicans and the status quo, well, they took the debates away from the National League of Women. They formed another federal bureaucracy now called the National Debate Committee, and ironically, that committee is appointed and it's headed by the former heads of the Democratic and Republican parties. So now all debates are channeled through this National Debate Committee, and they can make up the rules as they go. Now they determine who gets to debate and who doesn't. They make that decision. This body of people that is not elected, it's corporate. They're appointed. You can't remove them if you disagree with them. To me, every presidential debate should have at least 4 to 5 people up there.
Well, that's obvious. I mean, how can we ever have real choice if they only keep it to the two parties?
Well, but see, that's it. Just Ralph Nader called it the two-party dictatorship.
Even though national poll after national poll from 2000 wanted me on the debates, Buchanan on the debates, they want more people on the stage than, 2 major candidates that are basically spouting the same old slogans that they spouted in weeks before on the campaign trail. They're not really debates, they're parallel interviews. And the Debate Commission is a private company created 21 years ago to get rid of the League of Women Voters, which sponsored debates, controlled by the Republican Democratic Party. To this day, they pick the format of the debate, they pick the reporters who will ask the questions.
So you're saying it's a rigged game?
Yeah, it's rigged for the two-party system. No one else is let in. And the sad part is we, the people, stand by. It's our fault. It's our fault because we stand by and sit on our hands and allow it to happen.
Let many voices be heard. Let the First Amendment be used by all Americans. Open up the debate process. Why are we limiting presidential debates? We don't limit weather reports. We don't limit entertainment.
America has broken its own rules, has broken its own laws. It's time for the citizenry of the United States to actually follow its own laws. If we stay steadfast to the Constitution, at least, we won't be hit so hard with that global agenda. Violence in society is not caused by the people. It's caused by the neglect of leadership. And the police are the #1 cause of violence in society. They make the people jittery. They make the people insecure. Plus, if you look up what a police officer is in the Black's Law Dictionary, the only thing the police are supposed to be doing is keeping the peace. And they do not. So whose fault is it when you have violence in society if you're paying taxes to have peace in society and moral justice? The police are supposed to be the epitome of morality. Our children are supposed to look at a police officer and see an example of what a citizen is. Now they fear them. So if our children don't even respect the police, how are they going to respect the law?
The present situation is not the Republic of the United States. What we have is the analogy is that the pirates have come in the middle of the night, they have killed the captain and the crew, and that they have taken complete control of the ship. And this thing that we call the United States government is absolutely an illusion. It has no more connection with the Constitution, the Republic, and the Bill of Rights than the man in the moon.
You know, you go to a doctor and you get a diagnosis. You may not like the diagnosis, but you don't call the doctor names. And you don't get all uptight about it. But when people hear a diagnosis, an economic diagnosis, a geopolitical, political diagnosis, that ruffles their ideology or is counter to their party belief, they really get upset about it. So we only look at things for the way they are, not the way we wish they would be. The panic of 08.com. We knew the panic would come in 08. In November of 2008, we took out the domain name, the collapse of 09. The economic system is collapsing and there's no salvation for it. Current events form future trends. You look what happened during the retail Christmas sales of 2007. We saw women's apparel off 23%. We saw home furnishings and electronics down 27%. We saw luxury items off 35%. These are Depression-era falls. How much more do people have to see before they understand what's happening? When you look at luxury items, understand this thing is collapsing from the top down. Everybody's getting wiped out on this one. This is big. Okay, in 2008, we saw Circuit City, Steve & Barry's, Linens and Things. We saw Sharper Image, Bennigan's, KB Toys go belly up. We're seeing Starbucks, we're seeing Home Depot closing stores. And we're going to see many, many more of them as the year goes on. The question becomes, who is going to rent all of these vacant retail spaces? The answer? Nobody. You're going to see ghost malls. You're going to see empty shops all over. The next level, the commercial real estate sector and the business end. Merrill Lynch mob, the Bear Stearns gang, the Lehman boys, all these people that went belly up or out of business, all these bond companies. Who's going to rent all the vacant commercial office space they're leaving behind, plus the thousands and thousands of others from the Bank of America, the Citigroups, laying off 50,000, 55,000. 1 week in America, we saw some 70,000 jobs evaporate. Who's going to rent all of this empty space? The answer is nobody. You're going to see a commercial real estate collapse that's going to make the residential retail bust look like a kid's game. You're going to see vacant office buildings, vacant malls throughout this country. The collapse of 09. In 08, it was the financial sector. In 09, the commercial real estate sector, and everything else collapses with it. There is no saving the sinking ship. There's too many torpedoes that have been taken.
Zbigniew Brzezinski is a petty Polish aristocrat. He represents a social class called the Szlachta, the lower aristocrats. In German, it's Milchadel, milk nobility, the lowest. And he was trapped in Canada by the Hitler-Stalin Pact. His father was a diplomat serving the government of Pilsudski and this guy Smidley Ridge, right-wing authoritarian Polish governments in the 1930s. He then went to McGill University. He would have gone to Britain. I think he wanted to go to Britain, but he couldn't do it because of various technical considerations. So he then got into Harvard and eventually became the head of the Soviet Affairs Institute at Columbia. I believe that is where he picked up Barack Hussein Obama, Barry Soetoro, between 1981 and 1983, when both Brzezinski and Barry Soetoro were on the same campus, probably in the same department. Look at Obama's graduating thesis, Soviet military disarmament. That's nuclear disarmament. That's absolutely critical because it's a topic that has Brzezinski written all over it. So Brzezinski was, of course, the head of the National Security Council under Jimmy Carter. He is the guy who successfully played the Afghan Mujahideen against the Soviet Union. He has boasted that he lured the Soviets into invading Afghanistan by sending in U.S. Special Forces teams in the summer of 1979, 6 months before the Soviets invaded the country. He's also the guy who played Saddam Hussein Iraq against Khomeini's Iran for the purpose of destroying both countries, but of propping up both dictatorships at the same time. In other words, the Khomeini regime by 1980 was showing signs of collapse. So Brzezinski said, all we need is a foreign threat. So let's play Iraq against Iran and we'll keep both of them going. He was also a supporter of the Pol Pot genocidalist regime, and he's generally known for the traditional imperialist method of using one country as a tool against another so that you don't have to get involved and you don't have to face military defeat and all the expense. The ruling passion of his life is a hatred of Russia. He is a Russophobe. He is a ferocious enemy of everything Russian. There's a Brzezinski plan. The Russians will tell you, and I think it does exist. He doesn't publish it, but this is behind the scenes. He would like to divide European Russia into 4 or 5 different countries. He'd like to go back to a situation like you had during the Russian Civil War of 1919-1920, where you had the Bolsheviks in the middle maybe, but a whole bunch of other countries that had broken off, the north, the south, and so forth. So every Russian knows that Brzezinski means furious hatred, fanatical hatred of Russia. So that's what we have to expect under Obama. We're going to move towards some kind of apocalyptic endgame against Moscow and Beijing, with Brzezinski calling the shots through somebody like the most important official of the new regime is already clearly Robert Gates from the Pentagon. He's going to run intelligence, run the Pentagon. He's a clone of Brzezinski and has boasted about it.
That's stroking the masters, or getting the head stroked by the master.
Yeah.
You know, like lap dogs.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's you know, you did a good day's work and the master strokes him and send him on back to the damn doghouse.
Yeah.
I think in most cases, people like P. Diddy and Jay-Z and a lot of these cats, I don't even think they have any political awareness anywhere. Yeah. If it doesn't benefit them financially, they're not really politically astute to the point where they can be very honest and open and candid with us as black men, you know, and black women, to say, okay, tell us what you really think. The camera is not on now. You're not in the studio. You're not on stage. Tell us what you really think. And if what you really think doesn't go hand in hand with what you're telling the people that love, honor, and respect you and buy and support you, then what's really your agenda? You understand what I'm saying? Jay-Z already knows the handshakes. He's already taken the oath. They already let P. Diddy in. You don't get to the $20 million club without getting these people's stamp of approval. Do you understand what I'm saying? But Puffy had the vote or die, which is utterly stupid and ridiculous and idiotic. For a Negro like that to be giving us that kind of ultimatum, you either vote or you die. Jay-Z openly supports Barack Obama. 50 Cent openly supports Hillary Clinton. And
I think he changed his position. 50 Cent, now since she's out, I think he's now supporting Barack
okay,
Obama.
But that would be a smart move to do that.
Yeah.
Because now you have to be appear to be politically astute, because you don't want to lose that particular clout. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they have to be, so they can be called on by their handlers,
right,
by their white handlers.
Right.
So you have to appear at least. See, Puppy tried to appear neutral. Vote or die, galvanizing all the young energy, that demographic between the 18 and 35 demographic, get them out to vote, get them registered. Come to find out that all those names that when you register at the post office for the or register to vote, all of those names go into a database for the selective service draft. And this they're not telling us. So no one is saying, okay, well, this is the electoral process and this is how it works to educate us about voting. They just said, no, come register. And at that time, they want us to vote for Bush or Kerry, and both of them are cousins, and both of them belong to Skull and Bones.